Powered by Friends and Family Credit Union. It's time to bring a friend into the family on News Talk 1480 WHBC.
The Kenny and JT Show. Powered by Roosters, a fun, casual joint.
The search continues for the Cleveland Browns' next head coach. Their former coach already has a job. Kevin Stefanski got hired quickly. John Harbaugh to the Giants first, Kevin Stefanski to the Atlanta Falcons second. And then it was, Jeff Hafley to the Dolphins, Robert Saleh to the Titans, and Jesse Minter, who turned down the Browns' second interview, takes the job in Baltimore with the Ravens to replace John Harbaugh. And to talk about that right now on the Kenny and JT Show, let's go to the hotline from WNST in Baltimore. He is a Baltimore Ravens beat reporter for many, many years. Nestor Aparicio joining us on the Kenny and JT Show again. Nestor, how are you?
Yeah, your audience knows I'm an offbeat reporter, actually.
You know what? That is a fair assessment of you. Very, very well put on that, my friend. Last time we talked, they had just fired John Harbaugh, and we were wondering who the next head coach was going to be. And ironically, it's a kid that Harbaugh hired a while back, and now will replace him in Jesse Minter. What was the initial reaction in Baltimore, Nestor?
Well, my initial reaction is they like to have press, releases at 5:05. On nights, kind of like as a 5 o'clock news thing, which is all the way all of their news seems to break. And, we jumped on the line right away and talked about it just as it's very from the Harbaugh tree. And you're wondering what the Ravens were going to do, what their focus was going to be, whether they really wanted a culture shock, whether they wanted something different for Lamar, something different inside the walls of the building. And you guys are in Cleveland and you know all about that. I mean, Honestly, from the minute Ozzie came to the old building, nothing, football wise in regard to how they pick players between him and Eric DeCosta has ever changed. And that's the thing that Bisciotti likes the most. And we are dealing with billionaires. You have your own knucklehead there, and we have our own, Goodfellas guy here who came in, guns a-blazing last week to the press conference and told Lamar to get his ass to Florida to help pick a coach, up from Florida or whatever. It was just so. At the end of the day, with this, Stefanski doubled his money, right? He ain't got more guaranteed years. Right. Harbaugh went to the Giants, double his money, got more. So there's a little. I think Saleh's still getting paid from the Jets, probably, right?
Yep.
So Jimmy Schwartz, is another guy that was involved where you are, and Nate Scheelhaus coming in. And I mean, there were a lot of people that the Ravens, and Schwartz worked in Baltimore. Anthony Weaver worked in Baltimore for a long time, but wasn't really a Harbaugh guy. It was more of an Ozzie, Eric. I mean, he was drafted during the Billick administration, right? So there are guys with Baltimore ties that were involved in this thing, none stronger than Jesse Minter in regard to, let's go backwards here because this involves Ohio, quite frankly. Rick Minter was the longtime Cincinnati coach at the turn of the century. He was John Harbaugh's sponsor. He was also Rex Ryan served on his staff, and his son was Jesse Minter.
Okay.
By the way, Mike Tomlin served on that staff. Mike Tomlin has known Jesse Minter since he was 14 years old. Has worked with Jesse Minter's father. So there's a whole thing going on here with Jesse Minter and the Harbaugh tree.
He's got a nice tree, and he's got every stop that he's made, whether it's Notre Dame all the way to Michigan, he's actually been pretty decent, in my opinion. He's 42 years old. You look at this guy and you wonder, okay, everybody in the league is telling you we want a new, young, up-and-coming, offensive-minded coach, and yet the Baltimore Ravens, just as we felt that Harbaugh did, had to step back and make sure that he had the offense to run through Lamar Jackson, and that's when they started to be good again. He was on a hot seat, in our opinion, just a few years ago. My question's got to be this, Nestor. Who runs the offense if Minter's the head coach?
Well, it's going to be up to him to figure it out, right? I mean, of all of these guys, like Scheelhaus, if he doesn't get the job, is an OC candidate somewhere, but he wouldn't be anywhere long, especially if it succeeded. I mean, that sounds like, hey, look, if they bring an OC in that's a young guy, or they bring Cliff Kingsbury in and he wins the Super Bowl next year with Lamar and fulfills the destiny that, John Harbaugh couldn't get done with Lamar here, the OC and the DC, they'll be coming to unload in the same way that everybody's waiting this weekend, including your franchise, for the weekend to clear, because some of these four teams are going to have candidates that are going to wind up in Miami or Cleveland or a Buffalo maybe at this point. I mean, it has been a wild job. I've never seen anything. Maybe it's just because my franchise is involved in it. It's only happened here really one time, and the Billick thing was 1998. But all these other franchises that lose perennially every 2, 3, 4 years, shuttling guys in, and they're on this circus. As a sports radio guy, we haven't done much of this around here. These last 10, 12 days, and Harbaugh getting coronated up in New York. So the Minter thing, it feels to me like he was the front runner all along. He was the first guy they asked us to talk to, and they don't even need to know who he is. I think the owner has even met him when he was a young guy. Because the Ravens organization, there was a big thing that happened here defensively when Wink Martindale came in, who was also a John guy and a Rex Ryan guy, and from that tree came in. And Zach Orr was an injured player at the time who was trying to become a coach. He'd gone down to Jacksonville for a minute. Jesse Minter and another young guy you've heard of, Mike McDonald. They were the three guys that Harbaugh put into a defensive lab with Wink Martindale to re-scheme the Ravens defense from Terrell Suggs, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, the stuff that Rex and Marvin, quite frankly, had left behind a generation earlier that Ray Lewis had thrived in, through that almost 20 years. So those three young guys wound up being Zach Orr, Minter, and McDonald. McDonald wound up getting out the side door 2 years ago here to Seattle, and he might be winning the Super Bowl 2 weeks from now. Obviously, Minter was one of those guys that went on a different path with John's brother, went to Vanderbilt for a minute, wound up with Jim Harbaugh, and then stayed with Jim Harbaugh. And I know you Ohio people would appreciate, he was the guy there that saw nothing. So, when Jim was bringing in Navy SEALs to cheat and do all that stuff, he was the guy who actually ran the team for a minute. Jesse Minter was.
Yep.
And, now he's going to run the Ravens. Look, if he had gotten out the door here, he might have been your coach by sundown, Thursday night too, because he's that hot of a prospect. And one of the reasons the Ravens didn't let him out, you saw what Mary Kay reported, that we knew at that point, he's going to get a job somewhere. It's not shocking because the Ravens want to keep the system they had. They just wanted to jettison the 63-year-old expensive coach who was kind of hot-headed that couldn't get along with Lamar. And I think everybody landed on their feet here pretty well so far, except your franchise, of course.
Nestor Aparicio, our guest, WNST. Follow him there on Twitter at WNST. And Nestor, is Jesse Minter, Brian Billick, and here's what I mean by that. The Browns were interested in him. He told them no on the second interview and signed with Baltimore. You go back to the Billick days, the Browns didn't want him to leave Cleveland. He did. He went to Baltimore, and Baltimore didn't let him out, and they signed him there. Is this a repeat?
Oh, no. I would think that the people in the building that know Jesse Minter have checked off on him. I mean, he knows secretaries in the building. He's walked that building for years, winter, summer. He knows draft process. Eric trusts him implicitly. There's not going to be a lot of guessing. I would think that it makes Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith and some of the defensive players very comfortable in the same way that if Jim Schwartz is still, and I love Jim Schwartz. I'm unabashed about that. He's a Baltimore guy. He's been my friend for 30 years. If he becomes your head coach or your stays on as your DC, there's going to be a level of comfort for Myles Garrett there and everybody on your defense that will be good. So, Lamar knows Jesse Minter too. I mean, Lamar was here 17, 18. Jesse Minter was here for the last 5 minutes of Flacco and the first couple of years of Lamar before the plague. So, I mean, and really, the really good Lamar team, that 19 team that sort of freight trained everybody. Jesse Minter was a young defensive backs assistant and then a defensive backs coach on that team. It's all in the family. And I saw Ryan Clark on ESPN call it Harbaugh Junior. And so I think I might wind up stealing that one, or at least borrowing it for a little while, because until I see differently, they like what they had. And as long as they can get an OC in here to run Lamar, and look, Lamar has thrived under Monken. He's thrived under Roman. Lamar thrived even in Joe Flacco's offense for 5 minutes at the end. As long as Lamar is happy, because, he's a franchise quarterback. He's
right.
A $74 million cap number. If he's unhappy, they're going to have real turmoil here. And Jesse Minter's going to have turmoil to start, right? Because if you're playing without Lamar, you might as well have taken the Pittsburgh job or the different job, Atlanta job. I think that's the thing that made the Giants so attractive to Harbaugh. So Jesse Minter doesn't just have a system and a building and a pipeline and good football players and Lamar Jackson, I think there's some familiarity. So it's an important hire, the OC. There's no doubt about that.
Nestor, I've got a couple of questions that concern John Harbaugh because he's a local guy. His dad coached junior high football here in Canton, Ohio, decades ago. But as this pertains to Cleveland Browns fans, if we were ready to move on from Stefanski, and we're hearing that Atlanta fans aren't exactly ecstatic about the hire, why should we be glad that we didn't get Harbaugh in Cleveland? And should Harbaugh have waited until maybe the Buffalo job opened up before he said yes in New York?
Well, I don't think anybody saw the Buffalo job. And if you saw that press conference, that job doesn't look nearly as appealing from, do the owners know what they're doing? Okay. And that's the question I have about your franchise.
Sure.
And I've known 3 or 4 employees of your situation there very, very well over the years. Phil Savage and George Kinas and Mike Pettin. I mean, these guys were friends of mine. And, it's hard to overcome bad ownership. And Bisciotti has this great cushy thing where he's been gone 8 years off the grid, checked out by his own estimation, said that the fans didn't matter, came in and did a press conference for the first time in 8 years and said the fans didn't matter. Wielded his I have the power. So I have the power means he's checked off on Jesse Minter. The Cleveland situation for John, I thought that they would, with the new stadium opening and everything they've had to do out there, nothing would deodorize the Cleveland Browns quicker than bringing John Harbaugh back, whose father, Jack, remains a Cleveland Guardian, died in the meal. You call Jack Harbaugh right now, he knows everything about the Cleveland Guardians. He knows their AAA, AA. I mean, he's a fan. And John is a Cleveland, has identified as a Browns fan as a youth. I thought that they would make a more of a full court press. I guess it just was unattractive to John because John doesn't want to work for bad ownership. And I think, I've known that from Brian Billick's days, where one of the reasons he didn't go to Cleveland at the time is he trusted Art more than he trusted the new Cleveland situation.
Yeah.
And the Chargers wanted him at that time too, and he didn't trust Spanos. So, Brian never worked again in the league because he only was really going to take like the Vikings job or the Chiefs job. There were a couple jobs where he's like, I like the owners and I can work there. I'm not going to work for a bad owner. I think certainly some guys don't mind that. And hey, it's one of 32 jobs. I'll take them. They're all good. Right. And then there's other people like Harbaugh that said, I thought the Green Bay situation would have been great for John. And I thought for Cleveland, if they would have offered him percentage points in ownership, some sort of Tom Brady, Harbaugh family coaching academy, Canton, Ohio, Massillon, cradle of football, all of that John might have bitten at that. John's taking a bite at the Big Apple and a bite at Jackson Dart and a bite at a lousy division, which he also could have had in Atlanta, by the way, but no quarterback there. John Harbaugh landed exactly where John Harbaugh should land, and whether he'll have success or not will depend on the quarterback and how much power he wields in that building, because Joe Sheen's days are numbered. You got $100 million. He's not the head coach. He's the head god. And the fans have already coronated him in New York. He's got a beautiful situation there, unless he doesn't win.
Who was the runner-up to Jesse Minter if Minter, for whatever reason, would have said no? Was there a clear runner-up, a close second, the silver medalist, or no?
Well, they brought Joe Kelly in. He might be the OC, right? And they had brought Anthony Weaver in, who had been in the building before, and they had some comfort level with him. They interviewed 16 people. They only brought 3 people in. Nate Shieldhouse would also be another guy, and Chris Shula was another guy. And they obviously couldn't make that hire this week.
Right.
I would think the Shieldhouse situation would have been more appealing. Quarterback, master's student, DeCosta's a genius. DeCosta is DeCosta's a Mensa kind of guy. He's bookish. He reads a lot of books. He's very smart, very strategic, very analytics forward. John Harbaugh's taken that to New York. I see him wanting to work with someone he's comfortable with in Minter, but I think Shieldhouse is the next chosen one because he comes from the McVay tree, right? So there's all that tree work going on with the McVay tree or the Shanahan tree. And you know what? With all that sexiness out there about offense and Lamar and let's drive him like a Lamborghini, they wind up hiring a defensive guy.
Right.
Hey, speaking of defensive guys, I want to ask you about Rex Ryan, because it seems like every time you watch Get Up, he's pitching for his next ex-head coaching job. Now he's got a Super Bowl in his Super Bowl championship when he was defensive coordinator for the Ravens. Is Rex Ryan's ship sailed as a head coach?
I would say, and look, I've always liked Rex. I haven't talked to Rex in a decade. Rex used to do my show every Monday. Rex and I eat steak together. Rex doesn't eat vegetables, by the way. I've had a lot of meals with Rex Ryan. He does not eat vegetables. I've eaten a lot of chicken wings at Hooters with him and Mike Pett, and trust me, he does not eat vegetables. I like Rex. Look, listen, I love his father. I did a television show with Buddy here in 1997, so I knew Buddy before I knew Rex, and I love Buddy, and I love watching Rex on TV. I mean, I do. I love that show. I'm into it. Anybody that thought John Harbaugh would bring Rex Ryan into the building, I just don't think he would do that. He hired Rex's brother a couple years ago. I think there's a fondness in all of that, but I don't know. We had a term around here that Lamar coined with Mark Ingram back in the Big 19 year. It was called Big Trust. I don't know, Cleveland, you guys, but I don't know how much of it gets to you. But Big Trust meant we trust each other, but it was TRUSS, and it did T-shirts and all of that when the team was good until they lost to the Chargers that year. The trust. I mean, the trust level that needs to be there. And Harbaugh's the most paranoid dude I have met in my life. In 40 years of doing journalism, and a lot of these sort of jarhead ball coaches are all navied up and sealed up and militaried up, and they've all read The Art of War, and all of that. Harbaugh's the most paranoid of all of them. I just think part of Harbaugh not having the most glorious tree of people is he always hired Greg Madison. He always hired guys that weren't going to be the next head coach because he's a power freak. And look, I don't need to tell you guys, if you followed it last weekend, he spent 48 hours making the Mara family twist and pretended that he was going to run off to Tennessee and take their gig if he didn't get enough power in the building. Just go back and follow anybody's tweets last Friday or Saturday. He powered them to the nth degree to where the Mara family gave Harbaugh more control than he's ever had. So it's a power game at that level, and it's who do I trust and who do I want around me, and that's a really crazy holy trinity between the coach and the general manager and the owner, right? And especially when there is an owner who has some power. Look, the Irsay girls think that they know football now, right? So they're down on the field, they got headsets on. In Tennessee, there's a female owner. In Atlanta, there's a Home Depot owner that wants to, you to wear a suit and tie and take the elevator to the 23rd floor. You know what I mean? So all these houses are very different in how they operate. The Ravens went with something very, very comfortable, and the Giants went with something that they covet, which is the Harbaugh Coaching Academy and the suit and tie and bring him in. But John's going to run the operation in New York before it's over with, because who's going to overrule him when he likes the linebacker, from Alabama on draft? Here, I don't know that really, there was some checks and not some, there were a hell of a lot of checks and balances, because Ozzy's in the room still making picks, and Joe Ortiz there were a lot of smart football people in the building that made John look smarter when he put the players on the field. Belichick found that out when all the smart people left the building too, right?
Absolutely.
You don't get good football players, you don't win. I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
Nestor Aparicio, our guest, WNST in Baltimore. Follow him on Twitter there at WNST, talking Ravens, the hiring of Jesse Minter. All right, they've got their coach, right? He's got to fill out his staff. What's the next biggest need for the Baltimore Ravens in the offseason now that they got their coach?
Well, offensive coordinator, offense for Lamar, and then Lamar's contract, and in that order. And by the way, quickly, right? They need to get people in seats, and they need to fill out staff, because everybody's trying to hire the next Nate Shieldhouse, right? So Jim Schwartz needs a job. All these people need jobs, and they want to know what their certainty is. So in the next 10, 12 days, and then there's Lamar, who represents Lamar, and Lamar's mama represents Lamar, and whether there really is kumbaya that he wants to be a Raven, that he's in line with this. Because if he doesn't, this is his chance to beg off to go to Miami or the Raiders, or get a fresh start, or go work in a new system, or get repaid all over again, because he still has that cachet about him. The Ravens are on the hook for $74 million as a cap number, and Lamar doesn't have to do anything. And Lamar famously pissed Harbaugh off, got sideways, including in my phone from John Harbaugh, when I tweeted that Lamar not showing up for OTAs, and Lamar not answering his phone, and Lamar going to the letter of the law of the Players Association, I'm off till April. I'll see you then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I won't be at OTAs. And literally, Lamar has been that guy from the beginning, and it really pissed John off so much that it got him fired in a year when Lamar was injured, and John doubled his money, as I said from the beginning.
Right.
There are no unhappy people here. John and his wife look delighted to be in the Swamps of Jersey with a fresh start. Now, is Lamar happy? I don't know. I don't have him on the bat phone. But apparently Steve Bisciotti and Eric DeCosta believe they do. But he got the coach fired here.
Yep.
And now, is he going to get the next coach coronated? I don't know. But we're going to find out his position. The last time I saw him, he was yelling at Jamison Hensley at a press conference in Pittsburgh, I'm pissed off. Okay, great. So if Lamar's happy, they have a chance to win the Super Bowl. If Lamar's not happy, ain't nobody going to be happy, including Jesse Minter.
Last thing, and we'll let you go, Nestor Aparicio. Your doppelganger is Johnny Knoxville. Has anybody ever told you that?
I've gotten that, and I don't necessarily see it. I get a lot. I guess I grew up looking like a Ponch from Chips, and which would probably get me arrested in Minneapolis right now, being Venezuelan and all. And then I went to the Donny Osmond phase for a period of time. And, I've actually been confused with John Harbaugh, but a lot in Baltimore. My hair was short and I had the same color hair and the same sort of haircut as John Harbaugh. I'm going back 7, 8, 9 years. My hair is very, very Eddie Van Halen, 1984 right now. Sort of diver down Eddie Van Halen is where my hair is right now. So I do not look like, unless Johnny Knoxville looks like that, I don't know.
I have a picture of Johnny Knoxville with glasses on, the one we're using for the podcast. If he ever needs a stunt double or a body double, I think you're going to make some money in Hollywood.
Send it over to me. I want to have fun with it. Dude, we're getting a blizzard here. We've already got a coach. Our teams aren't playing. You know what I mean? I need some levity. By the way, and I'll leave you guys. Can I kick you in the nuts just before I leave?
We're used to it in Cleveland. It's a normal day. Go ahead.
It's numb. We're numb. Go ahead, try it.
This Wednesday is the 25th anniversary of the Ravens Super Bowl 35 championship.
Okay.
So, I, as a radio guy on my station, honestly, I've lived that for 25 years with every Ray Lewis, Rod Woodson, Trent Dilfer, Tony Siragusa, late great, So that's my air for the next couple of days. So if you guys are giving me content with Johnny Knoxville, I'll take it.
I'm sending.
I got to tell you something, though. What? That pales in comparison. Kenny and I are coming back from spring training, and we get diverted to the same runway that Art Modell signed away our life when he moved the team to Baltimore. Who cares if you win Super Bowls? He took our team to Baltimore, and we were on the same damn runway.
I was in a bar called, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. It was called the Crazy Horse, and it was in Parma that night. Or was it Brookside Parma?
It was Brook Park. It was in Brook Park. Yeah. I can't say I've been there, but I know where it's at.
It was an Eddie Money song. I was single then. It was a long time ago. But that's where I actually was at Game 5 of the World Series that night. So I'm really not kidding you. Yep. I was in the upper deck freezing my ass off under blankets with Eric Singer from Kiss 3 rows behind me up in the upper. The seats they don't even have at the Jake anymore. The right field seats that sort of stared at the lake. Yep, they're gone. I was up in those seats with one of my best friends in the world, and the next morning the Cleveland Browns were in Baltimore. So
there you go. Yeah,
I'm feeling you guys.
And the rest is history.
Time. Hey, at this rate, we have a new coach. We have chaos here. Who knows? Maybe you'll win the next Super Bowl before we do.
We'll see what happens. I just sent you Johnny Knoxville's picture. You can have fun with that. And we always appreciate the time, Nestor. Thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the weather there in Baltimore, all right?
Rhoda, I go back so far with you that we didn't even have a logo, man. You were like the first dude in Cleveland when Art was moving the team that I went on with back in early 1996, man. Yep. So we've been at this a long time. It's our 30th anniversary together, you and me.
How about that? I'll celebrate tonight by drinking a Diet Coke, all right?
All right, I'll come see you guys soon, man. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Nestor. Nestor Aparicio, WNST in Baltimore. Ravens beat reporter checking in with us. They're happy with the guy they got, Jesse Minter, part of the John Harbaugh tree, so some familiarity with him that they like. Now they got to just go get an OC, and we'll see who that might